This is an Ellis Mowers and More small engine repair. Stay connected on Instagram and Facebook at Ellis Mowers and More. Comments or questions? Leave them below or email me, ellis@ellismowers.com. Parts used in today's repair are found using the links in the description below. And as always, like and subscribe for more small engine content. Today's small engine repair consists of this 1976 model Wizard tiller. Pretty cool to have here in the garage. We'll give it a quick look before we get going. The main issue that we've got here that I've determined is that it's really low on compression, and I'll show you why that's the case, or at least why I think that's the case here in just a second. I do think this does have a shot at getting brought back to life, and it also has a shot at not, based on the things that I see so far. So I'll give you a walk around of this tiller, and then I'll show you the issues that we're going to try to resolve. Wizard tiller, like I said, 1976. Pretty cool, really good condition. Customer repair. Here is the model and serial number if anybody is interested in them. 618201, or excuse me, G1S 2010 A57 is the model. Briggs and Stratton 5 horsepower. Old school. When they made them really good. And then if you look here, I mistakenly said 76. It is 75. It's a 100200 and 750124. So January 24th of 1975 is when this was made. Here's what's happening, and I'll put you on the tripod so that y'all can see this. I'll get a couple of these bolts out, and I do have that one. Let me grab my tools. I'll take the head off. It's just these 8 head bolts. You can notice that it has the old style toggle switch on it instead of any sort of safety cutoff or anything like that. You just flip that off, grounds the spark right to the head, and you're good to go. So we'll see under the hood here, or under the head here next. Taking the head off reveals a little bit of dirtiness and crustiness. Nothing we can't clean up with a wire brush or anything along those lines. We'll show you inside here, inside the cylinder walls and stuff. Kind of odd to see such a small cylinder. Shows you that they used to could make a bunch of power with just a small little cylinder here. And got the gasket off. We'll probably end up taking the rest of the pull rope off, but I don't know how well y'all can see what we've got going on, but we're pushing the valves up and down. We've got a little bit of crustiness here on the exhaust valve, which we can probably clean up. But the intake valve, even though it is closing now, it wasn't closing earlier, so that's kind of odd. There we go. So the intake valve is like that. Well, it's actually closing now, so it wasn't closing earlier, which is kind of interesting. Maybe because it hadn't been run in a while. Really interesting. Either way, I'm still going to clean everything up here, make sure everything's sealing properly. One of the concerns I do have is, it's just really dirty. In the cylinder wall here, I don't know how well y'all can see it, there is some scoring on the cylinder wall around the side. I've seen much, much worse though. And I feel it. It's just a tiny bit right there. Nothing ridiculous or anything like that. But what I'll do is I'll get the cylinder and everything up here at the top. Kind of at top, not top dead center per se, but everything is kind of right there. These valves don't seem like they're seating all that well, so now they seem like they're seating better. I might just try a surface grinder first before I end up having to pull all of this to see if, or a surface like wire brush, and if that ends up helping matters, then we'll go further if needed. off camera before I made this video, this intake valve was not seating for anything. So now that it is seating, I'm thinking that it may have just gotten caught up because it hadn't been used in a while. By the way, he took this to a shop and they told him that there was no hope in fixing this. So this is kind of a little bit of a task for me to see, is there hope in fixing it, and can we? Is it possible, or is there not enough compression here? So it's looking more presentable. Remember, we're trying to clean off basically 50 years of rust here. And so what we're going to do, I'll just go ahead and put the head back on. We'll see if that cleaning up this head, like I said, I thought that intake valve was out a little bit, which makes me wonder, because it felt, like I said, it felt low in compression, but the cylinder walls aren't that bad, so I'm not sure. I'll put the head bolts back on, tighten them all back down, and we'll pull it. One thing I probably should buy is a compression tester. That's one thing I do not have here. Crazy, I know. And we'll make sure it has spark. It could be something as simple as the ignition coil too, which I could swap out. So now it's too light. I might turn the lights off real quick. We're gonna see if we can identify any spark here on this spark tester. I didn't see any just a second ago, but we might have some. Yeah, we don't have any. And I'm wondering if this is the old stator or point style ignition as opposed to the electronic ignition. Super easy. I've done it before where I just pull the old ignition coil out and put an electronic one in, and it works. So the compression, to me, it doesn't feel like it's there as much as I would expect it, but maybe it is. Maybe it's just this ignition coil. So it's just a matter of getting 3 7/16 inch bolts out in order to get this to work. I'm going to check everything on the pull rope side. I might even lube up the pull rope ball bearings and things like that in order to make sure that we don't have any issues with those. And then we'll see if the coil fixes this thing. So this is the old point style setup. How can you tell? You see this wire going into under the flywheel. We're not going to go through the process of tearing out the entire flywheel and stuff like that. That looks fairly good in terms of lube for the ball bearings. You always just got to be careful because you don't want to have a situation where it blows out the return spring on the shroud. So it's just 2 5/16 to take off, and we should be good after that, hopefully. The gap actually seems kind of large, so I might just real quick see. Man, I don't know. These go bad a lot, especially with how old it is. It's probably just good insurance to swap out another one. So let me see what I've got in my stash, and we'll put one on. So I think I found us a replacement ignition coil, actually. I've been working on a lot of 5-horse Briggs lately. Just broke down one that the rings were so shot on it was like a freight train when it came to smoke. I think this is what this one came off of. And what I do, I don't know if you can see the multimeter there very well, but take one end on the actual body of the coil, take the other end on the end. You can see once it levels out, it's about 2.58 ohms whenever I have it set to the 20K setting, which is, I think it's in range. You definitely don't want to see zero or an open loop. And I suspect that this one might have that. We'll find out. And it looks like it does. Might be because it's a stator or a point setup. But either way, we're swapping this thing out. Put the two 5/16" bolts on. When you line it up, don't forget this little air shroud here to put back on. But when you line it up, just line it up. You can put a business card in between the two there. Or, if you're like me, just eyeball it. Make sure there's just enough gap to where it's not going to hit anything, and that's usually good enough. But if you feel so inclined, feel free to use a business card. It works just as good. So the question is now, I've put everything back together, the shroud and everything. Will it spark now? And it does. See that? So that's a good thing. I don't know if y'all could catch that on camera or not. That's strong spark now. That's fantastic. So now what I'm going to do, I might just pull it a few times and choke it to see if it'll crank. This thing, well, has it got any gas in it? It might not. It's got a little bit of gas. It doesn't smell too bad. We'll go to a few pulls here with the choke just to see if miracles happen. And if they do, then great. If not, we'll put a little bit of carb spray in and see what happens. Yeah, we're going to put carb spray. I'm not going to kill myself here. I still think it's low on compression, but I'm not sure. I would think it would at least try and pop off here. Yeah, they tried once. As I expected, it probably needs a diaphragm. That's good. That's an easy fix, guys. I was hoping that it wasn't an ignition coil or anything like that. So, trying. Doesn't have a lot of oil in it. I know it's going to run eventually, so I'm going to top off the oil, and I'll be right back with y'all. Oil is up. It's oiled up, whatever you want to call it. We're going to see if I can prime it a couple more times to see if I can pull enough gas into the carburetor diaphragm to see if the diaphragm's still good. It may be. If not, no biggie. We'll put a new one in it. That's another relatively easy job. One thing we might have to do is adjust this screw in and out a little bit. I may throw some choke on it as well to see if I can get it to stay running that way. This might be a little bit of a smoker, so just hold your nose, so to speak. Yeah. Tried to pull some gas up in there, didn't it? Let's try it again. do need to take that plastic boot off of the ignition coil here. Once I do that, we'll be in good shape. Because the old school flip switch there didn't work very well. I'm going to let it run for a few minutes while I clean everything up, and we'll wrap this video up. Again, he took this to a shop and they said there's nothing they could do for it. Think on that while we wrap this up. Little smoky, a little oily. Nothing unusual for the age of this thing. Throttle adjustment, or the fuel air, was perfect pretty much. I tried to adjust it a little bit because I was getting a little bit of a choke situation there occasionally. Who knows how old that diaphragm is. I don't want to change it just because of how good it runs still and how little use it gets. I'm sure that old genuine Briggs diaphragm is probably better than any newer one I can buy today, so we'll let that ride out. Starts up good still. I'll show you. All these, it seems like you gotta, it's like a system. You gotta like pull it and it'll pop off. Some of these you pull, they'll pop off, and then you have to pull the choke, pull it again, and then push the choke back in to get running. But not in this case. So let's wrap this video up. So what I originally thought was a low compression situation, seeing what I thought was an intake valve not seating correctly and a cylinder that was a little bit scored, actually turned into a no spark situation where the points system ignition coil had failed. The points can get dirty and whatnot, but you talk about everything being under the flywheel. We want to make this more reliable and bring it up into the 21st century, I guess you could say. So a simple swap to an electronic ignition coil that doesn't rely on points was the fix for it. Again, we cleaned the head out some. It could definitely have used some of that. So none of the work was done in vain here, and we've got this tiller back running again. 1975 Western Auto Wizard brand tiller. These things seem to be finding me here lately. A lot of old tillers have come through here, and a lot of these 5-horse Briggs have too. You'll see more 5-horse Briggs stuff on the channel, as well as Mowers and more here. And I really do appreciate y'all watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video and got something out of it if you are trying to troubleshoot your tiller. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video.